I thought I was managing my stress terrifically until I started to track my heart rate variability. And it has changed my life. I want to share with you some of the lessons that I've learned and give you some insight into some of the things that you may be doing, which is causing extra stress in your life, or at least some things that you can be aware of that can reduce stress in your life. We're talking about heart rate variability, and I'm sharing the lessons that I have learned personally from tracking mine. Let's dive in. You're listening to the Begin Within Health Show with Nate Slager. For more, go to beginwithin.fit/podcast, or to enroll right now in our flagship coaching program, go to beginwithin.fit/coaching. This is definitely not the first time that we have talked about heart rate variability here on the Begin Within Health Show. If you want to get some insight into how I went down this road in the first place, head over to episode 247. Just recently there, I released my interview with Dr. Torquil Farrow. He's the author of a book called The Pulse Cure. And in the book and the interview that we had, he explains a bit about heart rate variability, hidden stressors in our lives, and some of the things that we can do to begin to make adjustments, all based on the feedback that we can get from heart rate variability monitoring. Now, how do we do it, right? How do we monitor our heart rate variability? Well, if you have a smart watch, you probably already have the ability to monitor your heart rate variability. Now, I haven't had a smartwatch intentionally. I don't want notifications pinging me all the time. I don't want to do phone calls on my wrist. I don't want to get text messages on my wrist or other notifications. I'm not a notification person. The reason I don't want those notifications on my wrist is to keep stress levels lower, to help me to be able to focus on what it is that's in front of me and what I've chosen to put in front of myself, what I've chosen to set my mind on, rather than have notifications just bing, bing, and I'm chasing them around throughout the day. You know what I mean? I do the same thing on my cell phone, honestly. The only thing that I allow to actually cause my phone to give me a notification is a text message or a phone call. All of those other apps, I have shut off the notifications. I'll open up Instagram, for example, and go to it and then check and see what's going on over there. I'm not going to let Instagram tell me that I have something I've got to see. Okay, so I've shut all those notifications off. If you haven't done that before, if you haven't tried it, I recommend you do. Just this is just a side point, totally side point from our conversation. Just give it a try and see how it adds some quiet calm back into your life. If you want to check your DMs on Instagram, you do it when you want to do it. Don't do it just because someone sent you a DM right now. You got to go see it. So I've had clients that I've worked with as well, health coaching clients. They wake up at night, they look at their phone and they see all these notifications on their apps, and then they start tapping on them and start looking at notifications, and they end up really seriously affecting their sleep. And it's been as simple as just changing the settings on the phone in each of those apps so that they're not sending notifications to the phone and you go and get them. So, anyway, just a side point. Here's here's the end of the story as far as the smartwatch goes. I now have one. I've got one on right here. You can see it's a pretty simple one. But after my interview with Dr. Torquil Farrow, I read his book, The Pulse Cure. I started talking with my dad about it. And hey, here's all the stuff that I've been learning, things I didn't even know about stress and heart rate variability. And so he got interested and he's like, we're going to do this. And he ordered himself a watch as well as my as well as for me. He ordered me a watch too. Thanks, Dad. If you're listening, I know you're not, but thank you. Um, anyway, I wasn't super crazy about having the watch initially, but I was like, all right, I'm gonna do this. This is a gift from my dad. We have the Garmin Instinct, which I think is probably one of the more inexpensive ways to get into this. Dr. Farrow in the book talks about the benefits of the Garmin. They have some interesting settings, which I'm going to tell you about in a little bit. So that's why we went that route. We got one of the simpler um, monitors that they have available, and I do have it set. No, no calls, no text messages. I only use it as a watch and then as a monitor for heart rate variability. Now, what is heart rate variability? You might be wondering. If you're interested, go check out episode 247. I'll have you pop over there. Here's how I would explain it now after I've been playing around with it, taking a look at it. So, heart rate variability. If you just think about the words there, it tells you exactly what it is. It's the variability or the variations in your heart rate. Now, it may be a little bit of a new concept for you. I think it was for me a little bit, even though I've been I've been in health and fitness for so long. We tend to think of our heart more as a machine that sets a pace, right? What's your resting heart rate? What's your max heart rate, right? We think about it as a machine that kind of sets a pace and it just boop, adjusts to the pace based on the demands of the moment or the activity we're doing, and it just kind of keeps keeps that pace steady. I know as I'm saying it, you're like, no, Nate, that's not how it works. And I know that's not how it works, but I think without monitoring it on a like second to second basis, a breath by breath basis, without actually taking a look at what's happening to the heart rate moment to moment, we can forget that our heart rate is constantly changing. I would compare it to looking at the waves of a lake or the ocean coming into the beach. If you stand from a distance, it looks like they're just constant, right? They're just this constant rhythm of in and out, and they just keep coming at a constant rate. But if you were really gonna, time them, you were gonna look very closely at the rate that those waves are coming in. You would find that there's slight differences between them, right? A bigger wave and then a little bit smaller wave. And between those, there might be a different timing than the next maybe two smaller waves have between them, right? And then the waves after that. So it's constantly changing. And of course, all of life is changing. Everything around us is constantly in a state of change, and our own heart rate is no exception. It's the same. It's always varying. So what scientists have found is that the more variation you have in your heart rate, the better. And I don't mean, you work out, your heart rate goes up during your workout, and then later you recover. Like that's part of it, but it's more of a moment to moment variation. Now, if you were had a heart rate monitor on, and you could do this with your smartwatch, just watch the readout on the heart rate as you take some deep breaths. Now, the heart rate on your wrist that you're watching is going to respond to your breaths, not like instantaneous, but there's a little bit of a lag. But you're going to see that as you breathe in, the heart rate actually, the distance between those beats, it goes up. As you exhale, you will see the number as you focus on just your breathing. Nice long, slow exhale. You're going to see that the heart rate number descends. It goes down. Now, the more variation that we have in our heart rate, the lower the level of stress we're experiencing. What happens when we are in a state of stress, whether it is physical or, psychological stress, worry, anxiety, those kinds of things, our heart rate tends to be more consistent, more steady, because it's trying to meet the demands of the moment, right? Our nervous system is telling it, nope, you've got to stay consistent because we need you to meet these demands, these stressors, whatever those may happen to be, real or perceived. So a stressed individual, or when we're under stress, all of us, because we go through periods of stress on a regular basis, I'm going to explain that to you in a moment. The heart rate variability is diminished. Okay. The variation, right? Now you might think, oh no, the heart rate's going to go up. Well, it may, but the actual variation that, like I was explaining, between the breaths become more shallow when we're stressed, and the heart rate variability goes down. There's less variation moment to moment in the heart rate. Okay. The waves in that example I gave you become more consistent, right? So that they can deliver a consistent flow of water in that example. But really, your heart needing to deliver a consistent flow of blood, oxygen, and other nutrients to your body in order to theoretically respond to whatever stress you're experiencing. Okay. So that's heart rate variability. Does that make sense? It's super interesting, and I know I'm explaining it probably even more simply. If you are a cardiologist, you're probably like, Nate, you don't quite have it. Throw it in the comments. Happy to learn more. Happy to have your expertise. But that's a little crash course on heart rate variability. Again, you got a doctor on episode 247, Dr. Torquil Farrow. He's talking about it. Or if you've got it or don't yet have the book, The Pulse Cure, you're going to learn quite a bit about it as well. Now, here's the cool thing about the Garmin monitors. Again, I have the Garmin Instinct. I have absolutely zero um, connection with Garmin, other than that my dad got me a Garmin watch, and I read Dr. Farrow's book in which he speaks about the Garmin watch among other monitors that are available. But hey, Garmin, if you're listening and you wanna have a partnership, reach out. Let me know. Um, anyway, I have no connection to them. If you go and check out Garmin, there's not going to be a link in the show notes or anything like that I'm going to get an affiliate payment from. Just if you want to check it out, go ahead. Like I said, I think we have one of the more expensive or inexpensive monitors that they have available. From the research that I've done, you can invest a ton in some of their really amazing products. But again, like I said, I have no affiliate relationship with them. But again, Garmin, if you want one, I'm here. Okay, so the cool thing about Garmin is they have a system that connects to your smartphone, just like most of your smartwatches. And um, among the features of the app that they have is something called body battery. Okay, and this is basically a number, a score, a battery level that the app gives to you, or gives to your body based on the relationship between your stress and rest times in life. The more restful things are, the more quickly your body battery charges. Okay, the more restful, and this is based on your heart rate variability. So the higher your heart rate variability is in a period of time, that can charge your body battery. The more restful those moments are, the less stress that are in them, the faster the battery charges. The more stressful moments drain the battery, your body battery score. Okay. So it's based on a 1 to 100. So you get this body battery score, which is really intriguing to watch. And it's just the connection between rest and stress, what's happening in terms of heart rate variability. All right. So you're getting that score. And that's a really interesting way to kind of boil down all the feedback, everything that's happening in terms of your heart rate variability and really stress and rest throughout the moments of your day. They also, again, tell you with a little graph the rest and stress periods in your life. In fact, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to hop over. I will share with you, if you're watching the video on YouTube or over on Spotify, I'm going to share the app from my phone right now with you. So this was a day not too long ago that you can see my body battery. This is the body battery section of the app. The high that day for me was 76. The low was 62 that day. So it says good job. You had a nice mix, so that I wasn't really draining my battery throughout this day. Um, and you can see the total, right? Charged and drained throughout the 24-hour period. And then you can see this graph here, right? The white line is the body battery, right? So these red spikes are stress. The blue are rest, states of rest. Okay, so you can see when there's a stressful period of time, that battery number is draining. When there is like right here, a restful period of time, the body battery is being charged. Okay, so you might have a little spike of stress. That's okay. It goes down a little bit, but then it continues to charge over overall. Super interesting, right? To be able to look at it. And again, I'm not telling you, you got to have a Garmin. My wife Amanda has an Apple Watch, and she's got a very similar app that does the same thing. But I wanted to give you the visual so that you can kind of understand what I am talking about. So, what I'm going to share with you next are the things in my life that I have noticed are, how do I want to say? Well, quite simply, they have moved me to want to make some adjustments based on this feedback that I have been getting from this monitor. And this for me has been pretty huge. Um, the cool thing about the body battery is that it's all around the clock, right? It's monitoring what is happening with stress and rest. The thing that's frustrating about it is that it's an around the clock monitor of stress and rest. And what I mean by that is, let's say you don't get a good night of sleep, right? You don't rest fully. The next day you start out with a lower body battery, but you might have stressors during the day and more periods of stress than rest. And so at the end of the day, your body battery could be pretty depleted. And again, the next day, insufficient rest, or the next night rather, and you might actually be moving in the wrong direction day after day after day in terms of that body battery. And the only way to get it back is to figure out the rhythms of your body. It's to understand your body better and understand how to make sure that you are resting more fully. So it's cool, but it's also super frustrating. And so for me, I think the frustration was huge initially realizing that because like I said, I think that I'm somebody, oh no, I'm really good at um, you know, keeping tabs on my stress and making sure I don't get too stressed and don't respond too stressed out to many situations. I'm a pretty calm person. I'm somebody who's been focused on health improvement for a long time, working out regularly. I'm not even kidding, right? So for me to be frustrated initially, I was a little bit thrown off, honestly. But what I want to share with you are the things that I noticed from tracking this. And there are a few big ones, which might surprise you and they might not surprise you. So let me just dive in and share some of the big things that I've learned. And I'll just share the big ones that have definitely impacted my approach in my life. They have changed the way I do things just in a few weeks because I've been like, wow, to see that graph, to see the effect of what I did or didn't do, and to now know that my body battery has been impacted has moved me to make some adjustments. And maybe before I dive into those, I should say this. You might be thinking like, what's the big deal, right? It's just a number, it's a body, your body battery, who cares, right? You're essentially, if you were healthy before, you're healthy now. Well, here's the thing. Stress, if it's not addressed, is connected to higher risks of disease. And they are the lifestyle diseases that, and by lifestyle, I mean, diseases that come as a result of lifestyle. We're talking about cardiovascular disease. We're talking about diabetes, lifestyle diseases that come as a result. If you boil it all down, it's just extra stress that is unaddressed. The risks of those diseases are increased. Now, of course, I'm not saying if you manage your stress and you're always in the blue on the graph, like there's no way you're ever going to get sick. That is not the case. We're talking about risk. We're always talking about risk, but there is definitely a connection between those diseases, chronic diseases, and sometimes serious terminal diseases like cancer, and elevated stresses over time. Unresolved stress, unaddressed stress. So the monitoring of heart rate variability helps you see, is there something that's causing my body stress? If it is, it helps you to know what things you can do to address it, to remedy it so that it doesn't become chronic stress, which leads to a disease, which might end up sadly shortening your life. Again, I'm talking about cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancer, these kinds of things. The risks are much higher when, for our situation here, for the example, right? If somebody's body battery is always depleted, they're always drained day after day after day after day, their risk over months and years of contracting one of those diseases is much higher. So we want to mitigate the risks as much as we can. And being able to track stress is super, super helpful. Now, let me share with you some of the things that I have learned, that like the big takeaways I have so far. And please understand, this is 100% anecdotal. This is Nate Slager sharing with you what he's found for himself. I haven't really experimented a ton. I haven't been like, well, let me try this. Maybe my stress was from this. Let me take this away. Let me add this in, right? I'm just being a guy putting on a wrist monitor and now saying like, okay, that stressful day was likely due to this. This period of rest, I think, was from this. Okay. And what I'm going to share with you lines up with research. It lines up with what Dr. Torquil Farrow shared with us on episode 247, as well as what he shares in his book. So I feel like pretty confident that I'm on the right track in understanding what the graphs in my app, my stress app, are telling me. Okay. So here's probably the biggest one. And it's made a big difference in how I feel. It's made a big difference in my health. I honestly, I've lost a little bit of weight, and I think this is the biggest adjustment that I've made, getting more sleep. Sorry, you knew that was coming, right? And if you listen to the show before, you know how important sleep is. But uh, in particular, when I look at that graph, that body battery graph, here's what I've learned. Throughout the day, there are stressors. They come and go. There are few opportunities, and I have to be super, super intentional about getting any blue time during the day, right? That rest time where my body battery is actually charging. I need to be super intentional about it. And I'm talking about like, I got to take a nap. I got to lay down and close my eyes and just have a little bit of time to just breathe and clear my head, right? It is where I need to sit outside in the sun and just breathe and watch the birds and listen to the wind in the trees and the bird song, right? It has to be super intentional in order for me to get that blue rest where my body battery is charging during the day. So, what that means is during most of the day, that battery is going down. It's going down, and it's sometimes it's going down super, super fast. It's going to be depleted. just like your cell phone, right? Just like any battery. When you're using the thing, it's going down. Now, the the big time, the main time that you have to plug in, the main time that you have to charge that body battery is sleep. Every day you get a shot at it, every single day. And of course, theoretically, the more tired you are, the more depleted it was during the day, the more restful your sleep would be that night, right? It stands true. Oh, I'm so exhausted. I slept like a log last night, right? So um, you can catch up, but what you need to do is make sure that you are getting enough sleep. How much is enough? We're talking about 7 to 9 hours, 7 to 9 hours. And I would say 7 to 8 in the past. Now I would say 7 to 9 because that's your time. And that was the time for me. Like if this stress is going to be resolved, if I'm going to recover, if I'm going to rest, then I need time to be laying in bed in the dark with my eyes closed and hopefully I'm sleeping. So, what that has meant for me is getting to bed earlier, right? When I really looked at this, I was like, man, I do not think I'm getting enough sleep. Most times I was like, honestly, more like 10 to 4:45, something like that, right? And I'm over here telling you 8 hours of sleep, right? Seven. I'm like, oh, I'm getting about seven, sometimes a little more. For me now, I'm not even kidding. Just looking at these graphs and being honest about what stress is doing to my life, I have been shocked at the difference, the improvement that comes by getting to bed earlier. And I know what you're thinking, Nate. I just don't have time to do that. I don't. it- I would have said that before too, but maybe for you, it's getting some monitoring, right? With a heart rate variability monitor and actually seeing what happens for you, seeing what is going on with your body in terms of rest and stress, because that's what it that's what ultimately did the trick for me. So it was about getting to bed earlier. And so now I'm like, man, for me and our lifestyle, it's 8 o'clock, 8:30. I start really getting serious. Like, hey, I got to go to bed. And it has been such a welcome shift in my life, honestly. And it has on the other end too, in the morning. I used to be the type of person like, man, I'm awake, I'm getting up. What I have realized is as soon as I'm awake, in most cases, most days, the the battery is starting to get drained. So if I start doing that earlier than what, my schedule typically is, then I'm gonna have a harder time replenishing it. I'm gonna have a harder time charging back up, honestly. So for me, what that has meant is in the morning, I'll wait. I'll wait for the alarm. I don't mind. I've learned, hey, this is a great time to rest. Even if I'm not sleeping, I can still think. And I know that the body battery is charging up, at least for me, because I'm still in a restful state and being able to recover a little bit of that body battery time as well. So more time. And it's just more time plugged in, right? You do the same thing with your phone. If you notice your phone battery, not your body battery in this case, your phone battery is getting depleted too soon, what are you going to do? You're going to make sure that you're plugging it in as soon as possible toward the end of the day so that hey, I'm pretty much done with my phone. I'm going to get this thing plugged in because the battery's been draining out on me too often, right? Or you're going to make sure that you have time to plug it in throughout the day. So, same idea. Sleep at night is the big one. So I would say for you, a huge takeaway here from this conversation is how much sleep are you getting? And like I said before, I would have said, I'm doing great. I'm awesome. I'm awesome at sleep. I'm a great sleeper. But I would say, how much sleep are you getting? And for me, seven, right? We say 7 to 8, 7 to 9. Seven is for me at my age at 43, not enough. It's just not enough to see the result that I wanted to see. And I thought I was doing fine. I thought I was feeling fine, but you know what? The data showed otherwise. The data showed, yeah, you can function great. You can do super things. You could do great stuff. You're living a good life, right? All this stuff. You're helping other people, and you're doing it on 7 hours of sleep. High five. That's on the low end of what people say, experts say you should have, but you're doing it. You're feeling good. You're helping others. Like I said, I thought this is great, but without knowing about it, what I was doing, what I have been doing, was setting myself up for higher risk of disease. Plain and simple. That's what this heart rate variability tracking is all about. So, a huge action step for you again, look at your schedule. And if it's looking at your calendar, fine. Just look at your daily schedule. Be serious about what time you've got to get up. Don't worry about getting up earlier. Just, hey, what time do I have to get up to get the things done that I need to do? And then subtract from there 8+ hours, at least 7. If you're not getting 7, try that, right? For starters, just try to back off of that number 8 or 9 hours and see where it leaves you. And you might be listening, you're like, Nate, you're so lazy. I can't believe you're talking about sleeping 9 hours. In some cases, I'm doing it and I'm loving it. And it has definitely made me feel better in addition to making those graphs look a little bit nicer. Okay? So that's a huge takeaway, I would say, from from this one is get sufficient sleep. All right, I'm going to wrap it up this time for this week. I'm going to wrap up this episode right there because I think we covered enough talking about heart rate variability, talking about stress, and talking about this project that I've been on of tracking heart rate variability and trying to master this process, trying to come out ahead on this game. So again, takeaway for today, give it some attention to sleep. Let me know how it's going. Say hi in the comments. Next week, Thursday, what I'm going to do is continue this discussion. I'm going to tell you about some things throughout the day that have really surprised me, that have depleted my body battery, that have increased my stress, and that I've had to be a lot more cognizant of. So we'll do that next time, next Thursday, right? Tuesday, we'll have our short bonus episode, but next Thursday, we're going to dive deeper into the lessons I have personally learned from tracking my heart rate variability. Until then, keep taking good care of yourself.